Okay, let's stay recording. First things first, I believe that we already know what data analytics is all about, right? So data analytics is more like doing data analysis but with tools. So that is what data analytics is about. Now you are now learning these tools. So if you've started learning Excel or started learning Power BI or Tableau or whatever, without knowing the foundation of what you are doing, you are on the wrong path. So I would advise you to go back. In our Discord channel, I posted a video that did a little introduction on um what data analytics is all about. You need to have a foundation. Not tomorrow someone is asking you what are the type of data analytics or what are the processes involved, and you're just looking at the person because oh you know how to do Excel doesn't make you a data analyst. So you need to have those foundations first before you move into using tools. Your tools are just supposed to help you manipulate this data, help you get whatever information that you want to get out of this data. That is what you're using it to. But what defines you as a data analyst is that's your foundation, knowing exactly what you're supposed to do and when you're supposed to do it. So please go back to your introduction in case you skipped that and you are just learning Excel. So you don't go for an interview tomorrow or you don't find yourself in an argument and you find out that you don't even know what you're saying. You just know how to use a particular tool. Doesn't make you a data analyst, right? Almost everybody we know can use Excel. Some people even learn SQL without even knowing what they are learning, right? So you need to be able to differentiate yourself from Mr. A because in the tech world and even in this path that you've chosen, data analytics, it is a very tight one. It is a space where you have millions of people struggling to fit into it, and you need to be different from others. So if you go for an interview and you know how to use Excel very well and you don't have a foundation in data analytics and they're asking us basic questions and I'm answering, maybe I don't even know how to use Excel too. I might beat you to the job because I can't give you the job. You know how to use Excel too, but you don't know exactly what you're supposed to do with Excel too, right? So you need to go back to know your foundation and know what data analytics is all about, right? So I already explained that. So data analytics is more like using tools to do data analysis. And you have different types of the tools. You have Excel, we have Power BI, we have SQL, we have Tableau, Python, R, and so on. So today we are going to talk about SQL. But before we go, databases, right? So databases are more like where you store data, where you can store and manipulate data. So SQL is a database where you can store your data. What are data? We already know what data are. Those things you collect from customers, their name, what they got, their phone numbers, where they are living, all those things, music, the kind of music that you play in your phone, the kind of videos you watch on your TikTok, all those things, they are all data, right? So you need to store them somewhere for you to be able to do analysis when you are done collecting them. And you call these places databases. So we have different types of databases. We have relational and non-relational databases. So under our relational, this is where we now have our SQL because in relational database, you have a structured table. So and which leads to structured and unstructured data. So we have three different types of data. We have structured data, semi-structured data, and unstructured data, right? So for structured data, this is where you're talking about data that are arranged in row and column. That is what you're going to be using as a data analyst, right? So you have your text, you have your numbers, you have what else can you have role and column, right? So all those ones you've been using on your Excel, your Power BI, all those ones are structured data, and those are the type of data you'll be using as a data analyst, right? Then you have semi-structured data. As the name implies, they're almost structured but not so structured. Then you have unstructured data. You don't have any business as a data analyst with unstructured data. The people that have business with unstructured data are called data engineers. So they make this data to be structured enough for you to use them as a data analyst. So your structured data is where you have your videos, your music, your emails, and the rest, right? So you don't have any business with unstructured data as a data analyst except you want to explore, right? So that is why you need to know your introduction. So you don't apply for a job and they're giving you unstructured data, they're giving you work of a data engineer, and you are struggling with your head because you can't remember doing anything like that. So you need to have a foundation, know what you're supposed to do as a data analyst and what you're not supposed to do. Because most companies, especially Nigerian companies, they will give you things that are supposed to be done by a data scientist, a data engineer, and still give you a data analyst job, and they'll give you very low pay, and you have to now do everything because you don't know what you're supposed to do. But if you know what you're supposed to do as a data analyst, there are some things that you're not going to accept, right? So that's for types of data and also types of databases. So under databases, where we spoke about relational databases, this is where your SQL falls into, right? Because you have your structured data there, they are arranged in rows and columns, right? So they have them in rows and in columns. So anything that you have in tabular formats are called structured data, right? And we have different types of databases. We have Oracle, we have MySQL, we have SQLite, we have Postgres SQL, we have Microsoft SQL, and so on. There are so many. So you can decide to pick whatever one you want to use in your journey. But in TDI, we're going to be using Microsoft SQL because I feel like that is the most popular one, the most used one, right? But if you know how to navigate other ones, you can do that. The just minor difference between one SQL server and another one, right? Maybe here you're supposed to put full stop, or here you're not supposed to put this, you're not supposed to put that. Just minor differences, nothing serious, right? So those are the types of um, relational databases that you have, right? So we've spoken about SQL. Now let's talk about SQL, the main reason why we are here. So as you've heard me call it before, structured query language, right? So structured, we already explained what structured data is, and then query is what you are more like what I want you to do, an assignment, something like that. Then language is your normal language. You know the way we have our Igbo, Hausa, Yoruba, and the rest. So you just as if you're communicating to the computer according to this particular language, right? So when you get to Python, you speak Python. When you get to R, you speak R. But now you're going to speak SQL to the computer for you to understand what you want to do, right? So it is one thing about SQL is that it is not case sensitive. That is another advantage of it, is that it is not case sensitive. What do I mean by it's not case sensitive? Meaning that if I want to write a statement, select, I can write select in small letters, I can write select in all capital letters. I can write the first letter in small letter, the first letter, the second letter in capital letters, and I'm still going to have my result. So it is not case sensitive at all. Unlike Python, if you have used Python before, Python is case sensitive. You might be running through running to into errors most of the time because of case issues. So SQL is not case sensitive. Then SQL can be used for data manipulation. Use SQL for data manipulation, for data analysis, right? But you cannot use SQL for data visualization. That is the only disadvantage. But you can use it to manipulate your data, you can use it to do your analysis, you can use it to store your data in their databases or whatever databases that you've created, right? But you can't use it for data visualization. Okay. So under SQL we have two we have two types of languages, right? So we have um data definition language and data manipulation language. Those are the two types of languages you have in your SQL, right? So data definition language, as the name implies, you're trying to define something, you're trying to create something, right? This is where you have your create, so you're trying to create a table, You have your insert. You're trying to insert values into the table that you've created. You also have your um alter, right? So you're trying to alter a particular table that you've created. So one beautiful thing about SQL, Excel, I think Power BI is a bit tricky, is that English language, right? As the name implies. So if you hear anything that is you're talking about create, you want to create something, there's no big deal. So structure query language is English language actually. Like it is pure English language. Okay. Then alter, you want to alter something. You've created something already, but you want to make little changes here and there, right? So and then you have drop, you have indexes, right? So you are going to part of your job is to go and look for these things and try to work with them. Like try to like I said, I'm going to teach you how to create a table, but I'm not going to teach you how to alter a table or how to drop a table or how to do indexes, right? But I've given you a foundation. I'm telling you that it's under data definition language. So you need to go and make a research about that and see how it is done. Okay. Then we have data manipulation language, right? This is where you're talking about your updates. Let's say you already created a table and you want to manipulate this table. You want to update a value. Oh, I found out that Simi is not a boy, Simi is a girl. Let me go and update the value. And then you change Simi to a boy. Or okay, I now have Namdi's email. Let me go and update it because you already created. So you are doing manipulation. You're manipulating the data you already have in your database, right? So you also have our delete. So you can delete particular column, you can delete a particular row, you can delete a particular details that you have in your um in your database, right? But SQL is not like Excel that you do delete and you do Control Z and you get everything back. No, please. Before you delete anything, as I always say, when you're working with your data, make sure you have duplicates. You have a particular data set, make duplicates of that data set, right? Keep it somewhere safe. Your email, you can create another database for it. Just keep it somewhere safe because you might be working with a particular data set and you'll be like, oh, I want to remove Paul from the list. And you write a query and you're removing Peter from the list and you deleted it. You cannot do Control Z and get Peter back. Once it's gone, except you have your data somewhere else, then you can import it. So imagine you're working in a bank and they've given you customer details that contains BVN, something that is money related, and you just do delete and you've deleted somebody's BVN from the system, or you deleted somebody's account balance from the system. You have to come and explain. You might not even explain in person, maybe you'll be doing that in police station or something like that. So you need to be careful when you are doing data manipulation in SQL. Okay, so those are the two types of languages that we have in SQL. So we are going to I'm going to share my screen now and I will show you what SQL Server, Microsoft SQL Server looks like. And we are going to run through the interface and try to create a table and also try to import a table. And I'll be done with you guys. So if you have any question, I don't think we have time because it's just 1 hour. If you have any question, you can just type it in the message box. If I still have time when I'm done, I will check it out. Right? If I don't, maybe I'll answer it in part of the recorded video and when I post it, you can go and check it out. So the meeting doesn't end in the middle of our conversation. Okay, this is what SQL Server looks like when you have connected it to a server. So if you notice, if you've tried downloading SQL, you notice that you have to download two things. You have to wait. You guys can see my screen, right?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So if you've downloaded SQL, you notice that you were asked to download two things, the server and the SQL, right? So you have to connect to a server before you'll be able to do anything in your SQL. Like mine is connected to my server. So this is the name of my system. This is SQL Express. This is the server I have in my system. So you must be connected to a server, right? So if I have more than one servers, I will have another one here. So everything I have here, database, security, server objects, replication, blah blah blah, they're all under this server, this particular server. If I want another server, I can download another server and have something else. So maybe I'm working for two different companies and I don't want to mix up the servers that I'm using for them. I can decide to download another server and have something else down here, right? So, but that's for servers. So you need to download the server to connect to your SQL to be able to write, right? So now, as we all know in Excel, this is called tabs. These are your tabs, your file, your edit, view, to window, help. They're all called tabs, right? And these ones down here are called your ribbons. They're called ribbons, okay? So if you want to create a database, right? If I want to create a new database, I want to now advise you, it depends on what you're doing. You can decide to create different databases for different things, right? And make sure that the name of your database is descriptive enough so that if you're working in a company, you're working in a team where everyone is working together, maybe you are doing data manipulation or something, and I want to have access to the data. I want to work with a particular data set, but because you are not at work, I can't do anything because I don't even understand what your description is saying, right? That's very bad. That's a very bad thing to do. So you need to be descriptive enough for your colleague to be able to do work without you being there, right? So if I want to create a new database, here I have this plus sign. So I'm going to click on this, right? So I already have databases inside this. I have class, sample, SQL project. So you can decide to create as many databases as possible, right? So that um if you have, maybe you have one database for all your projects that you are doing in SQL, you have another one for all TDI assignments, you have another one for all office works, so that if you're opening a particular database, you know exactly what you're looking for there, right? You know the way we have our Discord and we have different channels. So these things are being created for you to have easy access. So you don't open one database and you are checking through 3 million tables just to find the one that you're using for TDI class, right? So you need to create different database and try to make them as descriptive as possible, right? So you can create as many databases as you want. So if I want to create a new database, I am going to come over to this place, put my cursor here and right click. You right click and I'll see new database, right? I'll click on new database. Now it's asking me it's asking me the name of the database, what I want to call it, right? So let's call this TDI, right? And I'm just going to say okay. Now I've created a database for TDI, right? And inside my TDI database, I can create I can store query, I can do so many things I have here, right? So later you can open your SQL and play around with it. Don't be scared of these tools. They cannot spoil your computer. The highest thing your computer is going to do is to shout error, 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 be doing boom, dun, 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 but it's never going to spoil, right? So you can go inside these tools, try as much as possible to see what everything there is doing. Try, you're a data analyst, you need to be curious, you need to want to know things, right? So you can't just have a database or a tool and you don't know almost what everything in the interface is doing. Why? You don't need to create, I always tell the people in my class, you don't need a very large data set of 2 million rows to be able to play with your tool. You can create a database that has only two rows and two columns and you play with it. Try to know what exactly each and every thing in that interface is doing, right? So that's what makes you better than every other person that is outside. You don't need to find that beautiful data set on Kaggle before you do your manipulation. Just come up with something, play around with it, right? And you'll be good to go. So now if I want to create a table, I can come here and click on new query, right? I want to create a table in TDI, a table inside TDI database. How do I know that this thing is going to create in TDI database? Because it's possible that I can click on new query and I'll see, and it will create, but it will not create in TDI database. Now this is why you have this right here. This is what is selecting the particular database that you are working on. The current is telling you the current database that you're working on. So if I don't want to create, if I want to create this database in another table, I just have to come here and select the one I want. So I have class, I have master. So most of the time when you open your SQL to write data or to create a table, it goes automatically to master. That is one. Two, when you come, maybe you already have your data created in TDI and you're trying to write a query to call out your data, or you're trying to retrieve your data and it will be showing you error and you don't know what was wrong. First of all, check the database that you're working in, because most times it will go back to master. Master is like default setting. So it will go back to master and to be showing you error because that particular table you are trying to call out, it's not in master. So it's telling you, oh, I can't find this table, I can't find this row, I can't find this column, because it's working in master database and it can't find anything like that. So you need to be sure which particular database you're working in at every point in time. So always make sure that your eyes is here so that you don't run into an error, because it's something that you'll be running into an error. Even me, as I am, I still run into error most times. I'm like, what's wrong? Oh, I look and it's master. I have to change it to what I want. Okay. So now we are sure that we're working in TDI database. Sorry, I think someone wants to this person. Your village people follow you. I don't know why this one want to accept. Okay. So we said we want to create a table, right? And also insert values. And then I'll teach you how to import values. All those other ones to alter, to drop, to update, I'll leave those ones to you guys. You have to follow TDI tutorials, all the resources they've been sending to you. The only reason why I decided to do this class is because I've checked online and I've not really seen people that have explained SQL like down to the smallest. They always start from, oh, select, create and all that. They don't tell you um exactly what you're supposed to be doing with this particular tool, or how did this thing just happen, right? Because I know when I started, I was also lost. Like my first class I attended, they were doing select, people were talking about query, people were talking about execute, and I'm like, what's going on? Because nobody actually explained these things to me. I was just so confused, right? So that's why I said let me do it for you guys. So new query is to, you're trying to write a new query. Like I said before, query is like, oh, what I want you to do, right? So you're creating a new query. If I don't want this interface to write query anymore, maybe I've written long queries here. It's just like creating a new sheet. Yes. It's just like creating a new sheet in Excel or creating a new sheet in Power BI. That is what your new query is doing. That's one. Then to execute, as the name implies, to run something. Okay. I've given you the instruction, go and do it. Right? So that is what that particular one is doing here. And we said here is to select the particular database that you want to work with, right? So later you can come here and try to find your way around here, try to know what each and everything here, what they are doing, right? Just play around with it. It's not going to harm you. Play with it, okay? Right? But this one is just to make comments and uncomment. So what I mean by make comment is I might write a code, but I don't want to delete the code, but I don't want the code to be running except I need it. So I can turn it to a comment. So when it's a comment, right, it's no longer active, it's just there. So if I want to now make it to be active, I have to go here and uncomment it. Those are the two things that you're going to be needing most of the time in your interface, right? Sorry. So if I want to create a database, I want to create a table. I already created a database. Now I want to create a table um in SQL. So I'm going to write create. Remember I said it's English language. One. Two, I also said it is not case sensitive. SQL is not case sensitive. Meaning that if I write like this, it will still work. If I write like this, let's say I made a mistake, it will still work, right? So it is not case sensitive, and that's one beautiful thing about SQL, to still work. So, but I want it to be clean enough, so I'm going to do it like that. So I'm going to say create table, right? So let's say I want to create a table that has um details of students, right? Let's say I want to create a table for students. So I'll call this students, right? So we are speaking English language. We are saying create table students. So create a table, call it students. We are just missing out. Remember I said it's English language, but there are some things that you will not say. It's more like, oh, create a table, call it student. So we are removing call it student. We are saying keep this on one side. We don't need it, right? But if you put call it student, like create a table, call it student, it might be straightforward. But now they have removed that call it student away. So the name of the table now is called student, right? So now we are going to open a bracket because you want to write exactly what your student table should contain. That's the name of the columns. So you are creating a table and the names of the columns that you want, right? Go to the next line. You can put this um you can put this your bracket here. It's not going to affect. You can put it the next line, it's still not going to affect. That is another beautiful thing about SQL. So SQL is not even hard. If you move over to Python, you will know that indentation is very, very important. You know that SQL is very, very simple because in Python, a little indentation that you are going to miss is going to complicate everything that you've written from beginning to end, right? So SQL is even lighter. There are some mistakes that you make and it will still go. Okay. So let's say I want to create a table that contains students information like student ID, their names, and their gender, right? So let's call this particular column student ID, right? Now you're going to tell SQL the kind of data that you want to put in student ID. We have different types of data. That's another work for you to do. Go and search for the types of data and learn them. So we have integers, we have strings, that's characters, we have boolean values, we have what else do we have? I think we have about 6 or 7 of them. So go and learn about these things. There are types of data and you're going to be needing them when you want to create a table. But for my student ID, I'm going to call this an integer, right? And integer is represented as ITN. Integer, why I'm saying integer is because I'm not going to have any decimals. It's just going to be whole numbers, no decimals. So they are called integers. The ones that you're going to have decimals are called decimals, right? You can also call them float, but I don't have decimals, so I'm going to call them int, right? So the next one I want to have is name. I'm just going to create only two columns because we don't have time anymore. So name, I'm going to call name I think name is an inbuilt function. So let's call this student's name. So now we are going to use a data type called voucher. And when you're using a voucher, you have to tell it that's variable character. Voucher is called variable character, right? So you are going to tell it the number of letters that you want to put there. So if you know you're going to put anything that is more than 20, you can put 50 characters. 40 characters, 200 characters. Okay, but now I don't. Most names will not be more than, will not have names that are more than 50 characters, right? Right. Then the next thing is that you're going to close your bracket. We're going to close our bracket and we're going to run this code. Now I can see some error here. You need a comma. We're going to put a comma here because we want to differentiate between the two things that were created. Okay, this is a column and this is another column. That's one. Then secondly, this space that I added here is not allowed. It's either you join them together or you put an underscore, right? You can see that the error sign is out already. So it's either you join them together or you put an underscore for it. So I'm going to execute it and create a table. So now command completed successfully. So I have created a table. So my if I go to my tables that I have here and I refresh under TDI, if I open tables, I'm going to see students table there. So I have a table called students under TDI. So I have a table called students. Now I can put in values inside this particular table using my insert values inside this table, right? You just insert your values. Okay, student ID, student name. So let's quickly do that. Then we can try to import data. So if I want to insert value, I already have this. Let's say I want to call out the table to see what it looks like. I'm going to use my select statement to call it out. Sorry, select X. So please, from all these ones are the ones you guys will do by yourself. I just want to show you our column. So now if I run this code, this one too is also going to run because this is active. I want to make this a comment because I don't need it anymore. I already created what I wanted to create. I don't need it anymore. So I'm just going to come here and make it a comment. Now it's not active anymore, right? That table is not active. That comment is not active anymore. So if I execute what I have here, now you can see my column, customer ID and student ID and student names. I don't have any details inside because I've not inserted any value in it, right? So if I want to insert values in this, I'm going to use my insert into. Now I'm going to call out the table I want it to insert value. Remember I said SQL is English language. Insert into students, open a bracket. What do I want to insert? Which columns do I want to do that? Student ID, student underscore ID, right? And then the next one is student name, right? Then I'm going to close this and I will say values. So anytime you write a code and it changes to blue, know that it's an inbuilt function in SQL. Anytime you write a code and change, remember when I wrote name here, it changed to blue, meaning that it's an inbuilt function in SQL, right? So anything that is an inbuilt function in SQL are not case sensitive, okay? And before now, to call out the particular name of a column or the particular name of a table, you must use the particular case that you use, whether you use capital letters or small letters. But recently I found out that you don't need that anymore. You can call it in either small letters or capital letters and that particular table is going to come out. Okay. So now I'm saying I want to insert values, right? And now I'm going to open a bracket and I'm going to say maybe because student ID that I want to put there is 1, then a comma, then I want to call the student let's say John, right? And I'm going to close this. The reason why I put 1 just like this is because if you have done Excel, you know that numbers, you don't put numbers in quotes. You leave your numbers like that, right? But if you're writing variables, if you're writing characters, strings, and the rest. You have to put them in quotes. Okay, so that's why we did not put our one in quotes, and one is like that. So if I want to insert more values, I'm just going to put a comma here, and I'll go to the next line, open my bracket, put the second ID, comma, let's call the second person Mary, close close my quotes. Okay, I didn't open quotes here. Then close my bracket, right? This is it. If I let me uncomment this, let me comment this, sorry. Now let me run this code I have here. Okay, so now two rows affected successfully. I can comment this and uncomment this so that I can see my table now. So now I can see I have values inserted in my table. So this is just how you create your table and insert it. So you can watch other videos that have been provided for you on how to do other data manipulations and other data definitions, right? So, but the next thing we are going to do now is how to import a table inside your SQL, because most of the time you're going to be working with already created tables, right? So you want to import them inside your SQL. Okay. So if I want to, let's say I want to import a table, I want to import a table inside my TDI I've created already, right? But if you don't want it to be in TDI, maybe you're working with another database, you just have to create a new database the way we created, right? Come here, right click, new database, right? But I already have it, so I want to import it into this database I have here. So I'm going to right click on this, right? And I'm going to go to tax, right? And I'm going to import flat files. Let's say um I want to import CSV files, I guess. I'm going to import flat files. So the next thing is I have to browse the particular data I want to import, right? So let's look for the data. I don't know if I have any CSV file. Okay, yes, I have this. So so now I've selected the data that I want. I've selected the data that I want. If you are using the old SQL, you see a button here that will tell you to go to next. They will see a button here that will tell you to go to next. But I'm using the updated one. I have everything I need to do right here, right? I have everything I need to do right here. So I will just go to the next one. The next one is going to tell me to preview the data that I have already. So this is what I have in the data set, right? I have this. This is not the data I want to import, but let's see if this is going to import. So let's say this is the data we wanted to import anyways. So we have this in our data set. This is the preview. It's going to show you what the first 50 row of your data looks like. So if you have 1 million rows, you're not going to see the first one. You're not going to see the 1 million rows. You're just going to see 50 rows there, right? Then you see what your data looks like. And you can modify the column if you want. So remember I said in data types. I told you about data types. I said that you have voucher, you have int, you have different types of data type right here. So if you're trying to import, normally when it gets to this part, it would have selected the type of data type that's supposed to be there, right? But let's say you try to import and it's already giving you error. So you have to look at your particular data that you are importing. Let's say you're trying to import a data that has customer ID, and in the customer ID, you did not tick that it is integers, that is ITN. It's going to throw an error when you try to import it, right? It's going to throw an error when you try to import a particular data set. Sorry, guys. Okay. Hmm? Okay, so sorry about that. So you're going to select the particular type of data that you want. I really don't know what this data set is about, so I don't even know what to select because I thought I was selecting the other data, right? But from my explanation, I believe that I already explained. So if you have a particular data set that is talking about integers, you need to select your integers, right? You need to tick on it and say, okay, this particular data set, or you can change it here. You have the particular type of data sets that you that particular type of data type that you want, you can select it there. So primary key and secondary keys are something that you're still going to do later in your journey, right? You're going to use keys to connect more than one tables together because most times you're going to be working with more than one tables. Okay, so you can select the type of data type that you want here. So you are going to see a summary, right? And ah, why is this not moving again? Oh, my I don't want this time to finish without. I think it's showing an error, right? But by the time you get to, I don't want this call to end. By the time you get to this part, you're supposed to see a finish button, right? You can see here to complete the operation that you're doing. Click on finish. Then you can click on finish, and when you go to your database, under TDI, you're going to see that particular table that you're trying to import, right? So that's just how to import your data. So remember, you go to right click on the particular database, go to tags, go to import flat files, then you are going to see the data, preview of the data. You're going to modify the columns if you want to. Then you see a summary and click on finish. Then you can get your data. I don't know why it's doing like this right now. I can't say. But I don't want this call to end where I'm trying to end, where I'm trying to explain something. So I thought it has ended safe. So we have 8 minutes. So I believe I've done justice to our SQL server. Right now, you guys can now use all the videos you see online, try to play with them, try to know what other things are there for, right? You get which error? Um, did you check if your Excel file is in CSV or is XXL X or something something something? Please be ensure that your before you import, make sure that it's saved as CSV, right? The fact that it's Excel doesn't mean that it cannot be saved in any other format before you try importing. Okay, do we have any other question before this? If you have, you can just unmute yourself and ask. You don't need to type anymore. Okay, since we don't have any questions, that means the explanation was good enough. Oh my God. So I've been talking to myself. I didn't know. I clicked on mute by mistake. So I was explaining something. I said, make ensure that your data set is in CSV and not in XSL something something, right? Make sure that it is in CSV when you're trying to import it, an Excel file. The fact that it's an Excel file doesn't mean that it cannot be saved in other formats, right? So try as much as possible to ensure that it's that way before you try to import, and select the type of data, the data type that suits that particular column, because that can be a major problem why a data will not import to your SQL server. So if you have numbers, whole numbers, int, if you have characters, voucher, if you have numbers that have points. So that's why they show you a preview of your data, so you know exactly what you're seeing, and you know that you use it and check the data type that have been attached to that data. So you know exactly how to manipulate it and you can import your data, right? So if you have numbers where you have numbers and it's showing voucher 50, you know you have to change that, because when you're trying to import, it's going to show you an error, right? So if do we have any other questions before this class will end? Okay, since we don't have any other question, I want to believe that this was helpful for you, right? And from today henceforth, I'm going to be seeing more submission on SQL, right? No more confusion. So now any other tutorial that you are going to be taking, at least you have a foundation of what SQL is about now. Okay. So I wish you guys good luck in your journey as a data analyst, right? So you didn't get which answer. I answered now. I answered, oh, maybe you have to watch the video and get the answer again. But I already answered the question. I said you need to ensure that your file is in CSV and then check data types and everything like that. So I already answered that. So see you guys in the group and have a nice day. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye. Okay, you can ask your question. Maybe that was a mistake.